you shot a foot to the left, I'll be dead.
I wanted you dead, you'd be dead.
Now, congratulations on A Working Man. It's a kick-ass film, and you are, the master of making these types of movies.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Time to get to work.
Why do you think the vengeance of a righteous man is such a compelling narrative?
I think there's something aspirational about it. You take somebody like Jason, who has that everyman quality. He's like it could be our neighbor, it could be our dad, our uncle. And I think it's this idea that, we've all experienced injustice. We've all been wronged in life or know people who have been wronged. And the idea that someone we care about could come and protect us is very powerful. And I think that drives a lot of the fascination with the genre.
Oh, absolutely. And just hearing you talk about Jason just then, it just occurred to me that he reminds me a little bit in that way of, sort of Clint Eastwood, like High Plains Drifter, a man of very few words, but just incredible determination.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think, part of that comes from the fact that, he was a diver who represented Britain. He, very skilled martial artist, boxer, does his own stunts. So there's something built into him with his discipline and his focus that comes across on the screen. That intention is really powerful. You can you cut glass with it. There's something really strong in his eyes. And at the same time, when he smiles, it lights up the room. And that's what I really saw working with him on Beekeeper. And I wanted to give him the opportunity to smile a bit more and to have an amazing family and relationships and have a daughter and have the things in life we have that he then has to fight for to preserve.
Yeah, well, as someone with a daughter myself, anytime there's a film with like a daddy-daughter plot line, it just hits home in a way that, a lot of other things don't, I think, in these types of movies. Why do you think that is such a powerful element that adds to Jason's character in this film?
I think it's, it's funny, to be a dad and have a daughter, and I have a daughter, there's that juxtaposition, of strength, and you're the dad and the authority figure, and then you have the daughter who somehow is always more emotionally mature. And I still haven't figured out why yet, but it just seems the way it is, and they kind of see right through you and bring a level of truth that maybe you don't want sometimes, And we really see that with Isla, who plays his daughter Mary, where she's really aware, she's really strong, she's really focused, and she's almost trying to take care of him, and it gives him something to fight for.
And all of the things that make Jason great, like from a director's point of view, having worked with him on The Beekeeper and now in this film, like what is the thing that I think that you appreciate most?
It's two things. I mean, the more obvious one is his ability as a stuntman. So he does two roles in the sense that he does his own action and then he does the stuntman's action. And, his poor stunt double kind of has to sit there on the periphery waiting for the call that never comes. And because he does his own work, you're able to block it to camera in a way otherwise you can't. So normally you shoot these things twice. It's like you do the doubles pass, then you do the actor's pass, and you cut it together and use movie magic, and hopefully it works. But in this case, you can really focus on him and see his eyes and see what he's feeling and have that emotional content, because any great action is going to be character based. And then the other thing is his range, his ability to really connect with an audience, his ability to do dramatic acting work, which he doesn't have the opportunity to do so much. And by giving him such strong sparring partners like David Harbour and Michael Pena, who really ground the film and ground him, it opens up that whole side to him that I wish the audience could see more of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think comedy is something he's also really good at that you don't get to see much anymore. And like I've loved watching him from Lock, Stock, and Snatch all the way through. And now basically he's his own genre.
Yeah.
And to me, that would seem to bring pros and cons. The pro is you've got this ready-made audience that just can't wait for the next Jason Statham film. But the con for someone like you is, how do you separate? Like, how do you give them something they haven't seen before? Like, can you speak to, like, I guess how you navigate those pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm I'm a filmmaker first. I'm a storyteller first. And so to take, a very straightforward action genre, as a filmmaker, I have to add my craft to it. I have to add my visuals. I have to add my sensibilities. And so it's a really visual film. It's really designed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot for the audience. And, sort of because of my history and experience as a filmmaker, I'm able to add these layers, and there's a lot of humor and a lot of soul and a lot of family. And I think we'll see echoes of themselves in this. We'll see echoes of their families in it. So it's like pulling them inside the movie to connect with Jason, maybe in a way they haven't before. That's how I'm keeping this genre fresh and reinventing it.
Yeah, and I think, like the Beekeeper is a great example of that as well, right? Like I think, some people might have thought about that film before they saw it, thought, oh, Jason Statham, he's a transporter. Oh, now he's a beekeeper. And then it's like, oh, hang on a minute, this is a David Ayer film. And then they're watching, they're like, holy shit, this is not what I expected. This is politics. There's a whole bunch more going on here. And then it's this huge hit. Why do you think that film resonated so much?
I think again, it has to do with this idea of, there is injustice in the world. There are things that are wrong out there, and they don't always get solved. And, when governments and systems kind of fail us, we do wish that there was somebody with a good heart, a good person that could come in and fix things. And also, everything in that space has been so incredibly serious. So it can be a little bit fun to kind of look at it with a wink.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you talk about aspirational. It's kind of like a fantasy element, like with the way the world is now. Man, we could do some beekeepers, but and in terms of like Jason doing his own stunts, there are very few actors that do, and every time that I've spoken to a director who's worked with one of those actors, there is an element of fear, because this is the face of the film. This is without this guy, if anything happens to him, we're all fucked. So was there a sequence on A Working Man, or a particular scene that was particularly nerve-wracking for you?
Anytime you're throwing a lot of punches around your lead actor's face, it can be a little bit nervous making. And every now and then there may or may not be contact. We haven't had to bring the stake out yet, but it's there waiting just in case. A lot of it is just the exhausting labor of it, because normally when you shoot action, if you're doing 2 days, 3 days of action straight, your actor has a lot of downtime while you do the stunt doubles pass. And in this case, it's just Jason showing up again and again and again. But he trains for it. He's a natural athlete. He works really hard, and he knows what he's getting in for. Definitely had some close calls. But as they say, you got to protect the money.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I pity the stunty who accidentally clocks Jason.
It's a bad day.
And from your perspective, what was the toughest scene to film?
I would say the ending. There's a big complex action scene in the third act where like everything happens. You name it, pretty much every kind of action. Whether it's vehicles or gunplay or explosions or fighting or knife play or witty banter. It's Bluetooth. It's all happening. So anytime you have that many moving parts in a scene, and a scene that complex, you end up with a massive amount of footage, and you have to like wade through it and make it make sense. That one definitely came together in editing. But it's what I love doing. I had a great team around me, and it came out beautiful.
And looking back at some of your past work, I loved Street Kings. I thought Street Kings was such a sick movie. It's I've watched that a million times. But then when you have a film like Suicide Squad that commercially makes a ton of money, critically is maybe not so well received. Like, how do you kind of get your head around that aspect of the industry?
Well, you pull the knife out of your heart and move on, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. The frustrating thing there was I didn't have control over the edit, and the
Yeah.
film is very, very different from what anybody saw, beyond just adding a few minutes or whatever. It was a reconception of my work. So it's frustrating knowing that there's a better version out there. I'll be honest, when Beekeeper came out, I couldn't look at reviews. I couldn't look at the internet. I just kind of kept my head down and didn't want to be told anything. And then slowly it was like, what? They like it? What? So, that was a great feeling again, to kind of, get favor with the critics and the audience. But it's the nature of filmmaking. You're putting your heart and soul into these things. It's incredibly hard work. And you offer it to the world, and the world's going to have a vote. They're going to tell you exactly what they think.
And does those sort of experiences then, inform the sort of projects that you want to take on? Or like, in what kind of circumstances need to be in place for it to be something that you can move forward with?
Well, I think it does, lend itself to seeing the bigger picture. How will this come together? What am I really doing? What do I think will happen here? And so, when you have an opportunity like, oh, it's a Sly Stallone script based on, a successful book series by Chuck Dixon, who's, done so much in the comic book space, and an absolute action legend like Jason, in a genre where I've just had success in, it makes a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense to package that together and to make that movie. So that's what I'm looking for now. Is I think it is possible to bake in some of the success of a project in the early planning.
Would you ever go back to the superhero genre?
I would. I would need, some assurances that I would have the control. And I'd want the opportunity to kind of reinvent. We've seen so many films struggle in that space. So I think it's time, maybe for a new grammar or some new explorations there. So I definitely have something to offer there, and why not get back in the ring?
Yeah, but absolutely, like on your own terms, and giving audiences something they haven't seen before, which I think is definitely needed. All right, let's finish off with A Working Man. Like, what do you hope audiences come out of the theater saying about this movie?
I just want them to be glad they went to the movies, and with so many options and so many screens, and micro to macro screens. Watch the movie on your wrist, watch it on your TV at home. There's so many options that if someone gets out and gets to the theater, I want them to be very, very, very glad they did. And the film plays. I made it for the movies. I made it for the theater. It's a great mix. It's a great visual. It's beautifully shot, but it's also very kind of traditional classic cinema that gives you that movie feeling. You can't describe it, but you know it when you feel it. And this definitely gives people that movie feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Visceral, just the sound of the punches. Like, you're not going to get that watching it at home on the TV. It was a heap of fun. David, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And congratulations on the movie.
Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
And cut.